when Barack Obama was in position, we thought that a whole bunch of changes were going to come. We put all these presidents up on a pedestal, the leaders, they're going to save us. They're going to change everything. They're going to change the systems. Yay, we get behind them and we get all emotionally worked up. 4 years down the line, nothing happens. Well, let's give it another shot. Another 4 years, 8 years, we look back, nothing really has changed. When you have a president that's out there that kind of in the background is corrupt, let's just say, and in the forefront they present themselves as something different, well, the coasters are just going to coast. They're going to say, well, there's nothing really wrong. There's really nothing wrong with our country. There's really nothing wrong with the world. Look, everything is functioning. In the background, everything is falling apart. That's like saying there's garbage everywhere, but as long as it's not in my front yard and it's in my backyard, no big deal. Nobody can really see it. So let's keep on piling the shit in the background, but now it's starting to smell.
Now now there's trash in our front yard, so we get to see it actually.
Exactly. Now there's, for all the people that believe that, oh no, everything is great, everything is hunky-dory, we're such an evolved species, everything is, no, now you're starting to smell. Mm-hmm. And that smell, hopefully, is going to get people to wake up. You cannot change what you can't see. And right now, here we have a candidate that comes up and openly demonstrates some of the things that individually and collectively we're almost hiding. Even at the individual level, if you're going to change something, there's no way you're going to change something unless you take a look inside and you look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. And right now, as a collective, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly out there, or we have the bad and the ugly out there. And as much as it hurts, as much as it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it, reality is, until we as individuals don't step up to the plate and become part of the change, and we're always looking at something out there to create the change, we're missing the whole point. So it doesn't matter if it's Hillary, Barack, Trump, it doesn't matter. Because if we put all our expectations and we believe that the change is going to come from the outside in, we're missing the whole point. It's about the collective waking up and taking back their power and creating the change and recognizing that separation and division and fear and finger pointing is never going to create the positivity that we want to see out there. If we put our attention on what they're doing and what their plan is, again, we're fragmented. We're putting our attention on what the cabal is doing. We're putting our attention on what the bad guys are doing, the establishment, the elite. Forget about putting your attention on what their game plan is. What is our game plan?
Yeah, totally.
And as long as our game plan, if we don't come together and recognize that it's about love, kindness, cooperation, caring, unity, how can we help each other? How can we grow? How can we evolve? At the end, we hold our destiny, not them. They can plan and scheme, but it doesn't matter.
I mean, the only reason why they're in power is because there's all of humanity somehow upholding the structure. But if we stopped putting our support on them and actually supported each other instead, supported each other in creating the change that we want to see, whatever initiatives or beautiful projects that could uplift the world and those around us, well then that's when slowly but surely the battery life that we put into the old starts running out and we instead power the solutions.
Power the solutions. So we're in a perfect position now to recognize that it's never going to come from the outside in. It's always going to come from the inside out. It seems to me so far as a collective, we're still in a space where we need to feel the friction. We need to feel the tightness. We need to feel something falling apart before we really take action. I mean, if you follow human history, human beings come together when there's friction and chaos, and we help each other out. Maybe this is the wake-up call that we need. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the time for the catharsis to take place. Mm-hmm. This is the time for the detox to take place. Exactly. Because we're seeing it live.
It actually makes me think of like a relationship. Let's say you're with someone. They appear perfect, and you don't know that they actually lead a double life and they're actually not what they seem. And then when the truth comes to light, of course it hurts. You're devastated. You're like, oh my God, the person that I love, that I believe was there, to make me whole, all of a sudden I see through the facade. But this, obviously, in the context of a relationship, everybody would know, well, this is the opportunity for you to, take back your power, realize that you're whole within yourself, and move on, find your own path. And it's kind of the same thing as a whole, as a humanity. Right now, we're all trying to date Trump, but we're seeing that. Maybe it's not a right match. Maybe we have to look within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. No, it's exactly that. It does hurt right now. And I've talked to so many people today that they're like, they can't believe it, and it hurts. But that's where we are. And sometimes you have to face it. You know, sometimes you have to say, wow, this is exactly where we are. And wow.
Right. It's better to be stung by the truth than kissed by a lie, but then continually repeat the same patterns and not actually grow.
So now what are we going to do about it? We're not going to scream and yell for them up there to change. Like, again, this idea that, no, it's us. This idea of them up there and us down here, that's even... Yeah,
we have to stop believe that too, actually, because you know, all the alternative media outlets, either the conspiracies and all that. The emphasis is always us and then them and what these guys are doing, and they make them seem so huge, like this big thing. What if we stopped believing that story so much? You know, what would have happened then? And people say, well, we need to know and understand the problem, obviously, but then what's our spin on the problem? What's our perspective about it? Is it the truest perspective that we can have? Is it empowering? We have to see, like, whatever information we share, what effect does it have on our state of being, our personal state of being, and our collective state of being? Because that's where we know if that information or the spin on that information is actually serving us or not.
Absolutely. You know, and as you're speaking, what's coming up, it's, you know, there's two things. One, we say them and us. What about we say us and them? You know, like us, dude, us and them.
How about that?
You know,
those in power. Why isn't that us? Why do we refer those in power as these guys? Seriously.
Exactly. What a change in paradigm, right? It's us and them. You know, or one step even further than that is us. Forget about us and them. They're part of us.
Of course.
They are us. They are a representation of everything that we don't want to look within. You know, and find within us. So stop this us and them, the elite and us. That way of looking at it creates separation. Energetically, it fragments. It doesn't move forward. So as long as we have this, the elite and us, the bads and the goods, we're gonna stay exactly where we are. It's us, and what we're seeing out there is a reflection of us. And until you recognize that us is the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you contribute to that. Just because you're a human, you know, you're part of this collective. Well, nothing is going to change.
Let me bring up a quote. Seek to overcome that in yourself which most disturbs you in other people, by Thomas A. Kempis. How about that? I mean, it's very easy to look at the flaws of the people that are on the spotlight and that are right now, you know, making the big decisions. But how about us in our own life, in our own microcosm? So I'm thinking, you know, as we change our consciousness, as we, you know, dissolve the things that we judge in others that are in ourselves, well then automatically our choices will be different. Maybe the way we do business with each other will be different. Maybe we'll create new systems that will actually be more in alignment. But it always starts with this internal consciousness, because, you know, I think Einstein said it, you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. So it really has to start there. I mean, why do you think the people on top, you know, are doing the actions that they're doing? Their state of consciousness must be really, really dense and really disconnected from who they are and from, you know, their larger human family and world around them. Or else they wouldn't be, you know, doing those actions. They wouldn't be destroying the planet. They wouldn't be killing other people and creating all this distress in the world. So like, within ourselves do we feel the same way? Where do we feel separate? Where do we feel, you know, in a state of anxiety where we have to gather and hoard and compete? You know, these aspects I know I've dealt with them. I may not be on top, but as an average person, you know, with friends and family, I've seen these traits come up in my day-to-day life. So, and through my own journey of actually starting to clear those things and really be honest with myself about where I carry those things, I've seen my life starting to blossom and opportunities come up where I get to, you know, impact more of the lives of others and do what I feel I'm here to do. So it always comes back to personal revolution.
It does. And it's very, I share, where in your life do you find yourself being greedy or controlling or manipulating? So as long as we're pointing the finger at them and we're not doing the inner work, you know, and the inner inquiry to see what's being reflected to me from the outside in, I have within me, not with judgment, with a deep desire to start there first. and care about becoming the highest version of you, caring about becoming an expression of kindness and lightness, care about becoming what it is that you want to see out there. Right now, we are about to undergo a detox. And it might get a little uncomfortable. It might get a little uncomfortable, but if you know that's part of the process, and you go back to the basics, and you're saying, okay, past this discomfort, we're going to be better. Go back to the basics. You know, the people that are the most afraid right now are the ones that are so attached to a certain way of being. But if you get back to the basics, and you see what really matters the most, which is love, kindness, compassion, integrity, truth, caring, outpouring, doesn't matter who's the president. We have the opportunity to start to go back into those things and see what really matters the most. When you go back to those things, when you go back to the fundamentals, the things that we forgot, it doesn't matter what happens out there. There's an inner stillness. There's an inner peace. And then from that space, you can begin taking action that regulates the chaos that's out there. You can be of value out there. You can be part of the change.
Exactly. And isn't that what we would want anyways? To start being of value, to start expressing our gifts, to start contributing and giving back to the world. Like, regardless of this whole political thing, I think it's a very human need. It's very much our human nature to want to be participants of the world and not just wait, you know, and look at our leaders and just go and mind our business in our own little isolated world where, you know, we feel bogged down by life and just wait for people to make decisions for us. Like, this is not, it doesn't sound like life to me. It sounds like being on standby, basically.
You know, here's what I would like to humbly invite people. All the people right now that are disillusioned and they're feeling upset and they're feeling let down by the system, why not create that change that you expected to take place from the top down? Why don't I do it from the bottom up? Why do I not take responsibility and create the little social programs? Maybe it might be a neighborhood program. Maybe it might be a small little community program that you would want. If you expected the system to be a caring system and an outpouring system and to help those in need, why don't you do that? Why don't you outpour? You know, if you're in a position of power, for example, because you run a company or you're a doctor or you're someone that can actually help people and you were waiting for the system to change, why don't you go out and be the kindest version of you just because you can? Don't wait for somebody else to do it. You do it. Put the wheels in motions to change it from the grassroots, from the inside.
Right. You know, we complain that Trump is just this separatist who wants to divide and conquer us all. But, like, why do we remain divided? There's nobody really telling us to, you know, you stay in your corner and don't help your neighbor, you know, or don't show compassion to someone that's another ethnicity from you, you know? We're still incredible. The ones who make society.
We make it. And, you know, we're at a space right now where we can see our dysfunction, and now we have the choice. Do we spiral down or do we spiral up? And being the optimist that I am, and seeing that there's a lot of goodness out there and there's a lot of people that are awake and ready, now is the time to spiral up, folks. Now is the time to get together. Now is the time to create that world that you wanted to see. You know, I'm hoping that people can come to this conclusion that there's no system that's going to change things. It's not. It's going to happen with little, you know, like the little people getting together, and it's going to grow.
I don't have the lingo, the scientific lingo for it, but I've been reading, it was the work from Elizabeth Saturi. She's an evolutionary biologist, and she explains, like, even in the history of biology of cells, of how it all evolved, like, it starts off where there is a competitive phase where I guess different cells just try to compete for resources. So they get greedy. They go through their own phase of trying to self-maximize until the point where they realize it destroys. It's destructive. It not only destroys, I don't know, the body, but it destroys themselves. And once they realize that, then this is when cells start to be more cooperative to keep evolving. At the cellular level, I didn't have the terms for it. I don't know the name of the cells or whatever. But, like, this is apparently a fact. And that makes me think, you know, in a sense, each and every one of us are kind of like these cells. And we're learning through that. We're now going through our own competitive phase where we're kind of, like, divided and trying to conquer each other. And we're realizing, holy shit, we're kind of destroying ourselves and the planet in the process. So maybe it's time to do things differently. There's a moment of realization. And I feel like I have goosebumps when I'm saying this, because I guess this is really how we learn and grow. It's really through trial and error of seeing what doesn't work. And then once we know better, we should do better. That's the thing.
Yeah, we should do better. And the way that we will become, that is when we face our fears and we have the courage to take action from that space of deep down inside that knows that there's another way of doing things. There's another way of being, and here we are. And the old way of being has created this. To continue being the same, so it's time for a new way of being. And this kind of humbles us, especially those that thought that there wasn't a problem, that steady as she goes. Now, problem. So maybe it's time. Right. This is a perfect time.
Exactly. And let's help each other bring that perspective forth, so we don't just feel paralyzed and feel like it's doom and gloom, but we're all going to die. Like, this perspective is very real. It's very accessible if we only connect the dots. And by sharing that kind of information instead of the doom and gloom information, then we can actually empower each other. Wouldn't that be what we want? To have empowered individuals who finally take responsibility for their own lives and for their world, in joy and community. Why wouldn't we want to push that instead of feelings of fear and anger and despair and remaining isolated and feeling powerless? So,
I've heard I read somewhere, the universe is made up of tiny stories. So here we are. What story are we going to write?
Right.
So are we going to write a story of doom and gloom and out there, oh my God? Or are we going to say, okay, this is where we are. You're right. Now let's create a new story. Let's write our own story. We're the script writers. Yeah. And in any real intriguing story, there's always friction. There's always a good guy and a bad guy. There's always contrast. It's for any good story. So we're in a very good story.
Definitely.
If the story was all like, and you knew the outcome, and there was no ups and downs,
growth
there was no ebb and there's no growth, there's no interest, there's no learning, you're not captivated by anything. So it's, a way of looking at it is right now we're getting to see some of that bump and grind, and we're getting to see
the plot twist right now. This is plot twist and where we're going to take it.
Exactly.
It's kind of like there's some books where you arrive at a plot twist and then you have an option. I don't know if you remember those kinds of books. You have an option where you get to define the story. So there's choice A, choice B. It tells you which page is going to lead to. So it's kind of like that. We have lots of choices.
We have lots of choices.
And we get to decide.
And to realize that there will be bump and grind, that there will be discomfort. Do you put your attention on that, or do you put your attention on the solutions to that discomfort? Let's do that. There will be casualties of this. There will be economic casualties. Things are going to fall apart. But can we, move in and help those people rather than yelling at the system that is causing those?
Now it's time to show up for one another.
Now is the time to show up. If people are suffering, if there are casualties here, here's where we get to show up. Here's where we get to level up.
Right.
You have a skill, you have a talent, you have a gift, you have something in how you can help those that will go through the bump and grind.
Right.
Reach out to your brother and sister.
And I mean, I swear, by doing this, not only through a bit of my own experience, but seeing when people get hit by those catastrophes and then they come together and for the first time they get out of their little isolated lives and help one another. Like, you could see those people saying, for the first time I felt joy in 100%. Giving to my brother. I think I understand the meaning of life now. I missed out on this. If it wasn't for this crash that happened,
And this feeling that you feel as you outpour and help, this expansion that you feel, is what you are connected with that other being. That's why it's built in. That's why it's the feedback that's telling you when you outpour, it makes you uplift. It expands you. Become an uplifter. Become an outpourer. Just realize that feeling that you feel, like that expansion that you feel as you give, as you help, as you serve, is that feedback that's telling you that we're all one. It's the language.
Yeah, why does it feel so good? I think there's even sciences that say, one of the best remedies for depression and anxiety, start being generous, connect to another, give. And that sounds like counterintuitive to the ego that's been taught that really there's not enough and you gotta, self-maximize all the time. But then if you just let yourself do something like that, it actually feels good and you wonder why. You know, there's lots of stories like that. And for
Many,
me
many
too, like
stories.
I've always been a shy, reserved person who had a hard time, you know, eye contact and coming up to someone and helping them, you know. And I'm just starting to break out of that shell, and I want to more and more. And I realize, man, this is the meaning of life. This is the meaning of life.
It definitely is. My personal story, I went from someone that was all about what can I get, not because I was greedy, I was insecure. It had nothing to do about, so I can, my personal story was not about inflating my ego, so I can shine and show that I had somewhat maybe, but not really that. But it was more about insecurity. I have to create like this big nest egg for my own security. And what ended up happening is the journey was a very build and protect kind of journey. I didn't enjoy it. So it's all about hoarding, and it's all about me. It doesn't feel really good. And when you're operating under that way of being, you cannot wait to take a break. You're always feeling depleted. You can't wait for the vacation because it's all about you.
Right.
When I had my awakening and when I got to see the bigger picture, I realized, wait a minute, I've been playing the game all wrong. We are all connected. And this was not an intellectual understanding. This was a deep, visceral knowing. And when I began to outpour and give and serve, not with I'm going to give, but what am I going to get back? The pure joy of giving and outpouring was my gift. I felt so abundant. I felt so expansive. It wasn't what's in it for me. It was I'm going to outpour, I'm going to give because it makes me feel alive. And I felt that. And how can you turn that off? I wanted to give more. The more I gave, the more I was of service, the more I let go of expectations, the more I let go of end results, the more I let go of the mindset that says, well, I gave, now I need to get what's in it for me. The more I gave up on that. It took a lot of courage to let go of that. But when I gave it up and when I went through that fear, life began to support me in ways that were unbelievable. Doors opened, people came together. I was more abundant and I was thriving at a higher level than before. And it became crystal clear. It was, wow, it's all about becoming the best version of me and paying attention to where I'm feeling contracted and all squeezed in. And it's all about my fears and my insecurities and how can I get to a space of how can I give. And I've never looked back. I've been thriving physically, mentally, financially, relationship-wise. Life became light. Life became beautiful again. And I want to share this with as many people as I can in a very grounded way. And this is what we're doing. There's not fancy theories. It's just take a look and you'll see that this is the way things work.
Like you said, this isn't fluff. This isn't wearing rose-colored glasses and rainbows and unicorns and crystals. This is just, connect the dots, man. It's simple. It's actually common sense. Weirdly enough, not so common these days, but it's like cause and effect. How you are impacts your life. How you are impacts others. It's right it's right in how we feel. And that's the thing. A lot of people are so stuck up in their heads and in concepts and in knowledge that we forget to use our own internal guidance system, which operates very much through subtle feelings. It may not be a thought, but it's a feeling. And once we connect with this, it becomes much more easier to navigate and to manifest that life that we know we're here to live, and to manifest that more beautiful world that we know is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a great opportunity right now, even though it doesn't seem like it. But right now we're sitting at a beautiful position to create that change.
Yeah.
We just have to assume that responsibility.
Exactly.
And it takes maturity to do that.
It takes maturity. We need to grow up.
We need to grow up. We need to, it takes groundedness. It takes back to the basics.
Wisdom,
rationality.
Even, exactly.
Look at the big picture. This is very rational stuff.
It's very logical when you look at it.
Very logical. If you look at it, and it's very common sense. Right. Stop being diverted to ways that take you away from the basics of what we need to do as individuals and as a collective. The more we're look over here, look over there. Oh, I need. You're missing the basics. You're missing the truth. Take a deep breath, come back in, take a look at the big picture. You'll see what you're being called to do. Rational, not fluffy, very grounded, not even spiritual, no religion, no love and light stuff. This is what we're being called to do. Very, very simple to see. It's not complicated, folks. It really isn't.
Standing ovation!